Tonom is a detective who is scared that no girl will ever want him because he's invisible. However, when his blind coworker notices him and starts giving him attention, he falls for her and rizzes her up, so he can start a life with her. The story begins when Tonom arrives for work and is noticed by his blind subordinate, Yako. He asks her how she could tell it was him, and she says she can smell him, which makes Tonom start sniffing himself, thinking he stinks. However, Yako freaks out and tells him he doesn't stink, and she only sensed him because her senses are better than the average human. Tonom compliments her for this because he can't even detect his own scent, and he is grateful that someone else can sense him. To confirm this, he goes completely invisible and asks Yako to point out where he is. Yako listens closely to his footsteps and realizes he is at the door, and Tonom confirms this. Realizing she's the only one on the planet who can find him, his heart begins to race, so he asks her to join him for dinner that evening. Yako is shocked because she wasn't expecting to be asked out like that, but she agrees to join him. On the way, Tonom asks if she has any preferences or allergies, but she says she's cool with anything since she doesn't go out that often. Realizing she might not know any restaurants, Tonom offers to take her to a spot and begins leading her there. Along the way, Yako notices something off about him and assumes he doesn't have any restaurants in mind. She begins feeling bad because she's a blind workaholic who doesn't go out, but she snaps out of it when Tonom asks if she can sense something delicious. Yako admits she can and points to a restaurant. Tonom is glad because he's picked something that will suit her taste. Since it's his first time at this restaurant, Tonom goes with the house recommendation, and Yako likes it. She smiles as she remarks that it's her first time eating out with someone from work, but is stunned when she realizes she's actually on a date. She snaps out of it when Tonom gives her a piece of his meat to eat, but Tonom notices her mood and asks what's up. She says the outing feels like a date and she isn't sure what to think, so Tonom tells her it's a date. Seeing Yako's nervous face, Tonom walks up to her and places her hand on his heart so she can feel it racing and know that he gets nervous too. However, everyone in the restaurant starts looking at them like they're crazy. After they finish eating, Tonom asks for Yako's hand so he can lead her to the station, but she becomes shy because they'll look like a couple. Tonom tells her not to worry because YouTube can't demonetize this video even if he develops a plot with her on screen, but Yako tells him he doesn't need to go that far. She begins tweaking and opts to walk on her own using her stick, and Tonom realizes she's flustered by the last thing he said. Yako can already tell that he's grinning at her, which surprises him, though he promises never to hide his emotions from her. After that, he holds her hand and escorts her to the train station, but when she arrives home, she starts rolling around on her bed because her first date with him went well. The following day, Yako sits in the office thinking about the first time she met Tonom. Back then, he seemed so nice to her, and his voice was so soothing that she would wet the floor after hearing him. She also liked how elegantly he carried himself and wished they'd smashed, because no one would even notice, since his sausage was invisible. Currently, Yako dismisses the thought because she only went out with him once, but she wonders what he thinks of her. She also wonders what life is like for him because normal people can't see him, which makes her ask if he wishes she could see him. Tonom tells her he doesn't really care much about it because he is used to being invisible, but he is grateful that Yako is okay with feeling him instead. That afternoon, Yako bumps into Jirashi, her colleague, who saves her from falling to the ground. At the office, Yako bumps into Kikira, another colleague, who helps her to her table. While the others are working, Yako asks if they notice anything strange about her appearance, and Jirashi realizes she might be trying to impress someone. She compliments Yako's looks and claims she's a love coach in case she needs any advice on romance. Yako claims she's a good girl because she hasn't been getting enough vitamin D lately. All of a sudden, Tonom enters the office and asks to touch her hair, and Yako agrees, although the head pat makes her pickle start tingling. When Tonom is done, Jirashi is flustered because their boss is the guy Yako is simping for, so Yako turns red and dodges the conversation. After that, Yako joins Tonom to listen to clients, most of whom demand investigations into their cheating spouses and missing exes. The following day, Tonom heads out to follow up on a lead, and he turns fully invisible when the guy he is tailing turns back. As the guy walks away, Tonom remarks that life as an invisible man is great, but he eats those words the moment he runs into a kid who can't see him. In the meantime, Yako is in the office listening to an audiobook about how to make happy sounds in the bedroom. When Jirashi asks what she's listening to, she lies that it's a normal audiobook to avoid being called a plot addict. Jirashi finds the book cool but mentions that she can't really follow what's being said, which shocks Yako because Jirashi is a wolf. Jirashi explains she isn't great at hearing or sniffing stuff by default and can only do it when she's locked in. Yako says she knows because she's checked Jirashi's reports. She then asks Jirashi for help reading a receipt on her table and finds that Jirashi spent a lot of cash on McDonald's. Jirashi says she's on heat and that her appetite has gotten worse, so Yako smiles and tells her to get a man instead and stop spending company funds on food. Feeling embarrassed, Jirashi leaves, but not before showing Yako where her phone is. Later, Yako checks the time and realizes Tonome has been out for so long. A bit later, Tonome returns, but when Yako calls out to him, he ignores her, so Jirashi tells her no one's there. Kikira then notices blood stains on the floor and assumes Yako is hurt, but Yako denies being injured. Afterward, she figures the blood is from Tonome and heads to his office with a first aid kit to see what's up. When she arrives, Tonome scoffs because he can't fully hide himself whenever she's around, so he reveals that he ran into some trouble earlier. Before now, he had hosted a married goblin couple and proved that the husband was a serial cheat. The wife was pissed and threatened to air fry her husband's sacks for sleeping around, while the cheating goblin was upset that his wife sent a detective after him. When Tonome saw things getting out of control, he tried to calm them down but ended up getting hurt. Presently, Tonome narrates everything that happened to Yako, who feels bad for him, but Tonome tells her not to stress because he and his client are fine. He finds it weird that his blood ceases to be invisible when it leaves his body and reveals that his clients were shocked when they saw it. However, Yako is bothered because his injury looks deep, and he notices she's worried. While he dresses the wounds, he tells her the injuries aren't that bad and that it only looks worse because he bled more than expected. However, Yako is scared because if he bleeds too much, he might die, so she asks if there's anything she can do to help. Since she's persistent, Tonome tells her to help with the bandage, and then he reveals he snuck into the office so she wouldn't be worried about him. While he covers his wound, he mentions that he feels ticklish around the area and also reveals that he's naturally ticklish. When Yako asks if she can tickle him, Tonome refuses because it might lead to something else. After they are done, they leave the room and realize the other employees have closed for the day, so Tonome says he'll stay back and write a report. Yako feels bad because she's going home while Tonome will be working overtime, so she decides to order some supplies for him. She then suggests they take a break together when she's done with work, but Tonome decides to take the break now and complete his job later. At first, he makes her some tea to help her feel relaxed, and Yako enjoys it, saying that it tastes good. Deep down, she wants to go out on another date with Tonome, but is scared because she thinks the previous date was a one-time thing. She figures she could just ask him out herself and decides to shoot her shot, so Tonome smiles because he was just about to ask her to dinner. He says he found a place he wants to show her, so Yako agrees to pick a day for their next date. The following day, Tonome leads Yako to an elven restaurant to get a special tea combo. As they are presented with multiple tea blends to choose from, Yako becomes a bit confused and decides to go with the one Tonome gave her the day before, as she liked it. Karma, the bartender, reveals that he's the one behind the tea blend, and he recommended it for Tonome because he asked for a tea blend to make a girl happy. He teases Yako that Tonome will ask her out soon, but that's when his wife, Light, shows up and drags him away. While Yako awaits her order, she asks Tonome if he found this restaurant for her. She itches to know if he researched this place because of her, but she becomes shy because she's asking lots of questions. Tonome confirms her suspicions and compliments her intuition, but she claims she isn't smart because she doesn't know many things. One thing she'd like to know is what Tonome looks like, and she hates that she can only work with her imagination. Tonome notices and allows her to touch his hands, and she realizes his fingernails are well kept. Tonome says it's because of the ladies, and Yako understands because she doesn't like it sharp and rough. As Tonome holds her hand, she becomes flustered and starts thinking that he can see right through her. But before things can get interesting, Light shows up with their order and ruins their moment. That afternoon, Yako asks Jirashi about Tonom's fashion sense, so Jirashi mentions that Tonom wears a suit all the time. When Kikira asks Yako why she's asking, Yako says she wants to go shopping for herself. Jirashi pieces things together and figures she wants to go on a twin date with Tonom, so she gets fired up and offers to take Yako shopping. At the mall, Yako tries out different outfits, and all of them look good on her. All the while, Tonom is at the office, asking Kikira for restaurant recommendations, and he gets a dozen. The following day, Karma and his wife arrive at Tonom's office, and they complain that they've been watched of late while working in their restaurant. Light says hooded guys ask their neighbors about her, and she's found them taking pictures of the restaurant. Meanwhile, Karma's cheeks are red because he never thought he'd be cute enough to have a stalker. When Tonom curiously asks the couple if they were followed, Light says she lost her stalkers, so Tonom offers to look into their situation and come up with a solution. A while later, Kirika reports that he's traced one of the stalker's vehicles to a big pharma corp in the mountains, and that all the people in the car are dressed the same. Seeing this, Tonom figures the stalker situation is bigger than he expected, but just as he's about to ask Jirashi for intel, she reports that the stalkers have stopped in front of Light's shop. Currently, she's running away with Light and Karma as she barely made it out of the restaurant in time. After hearing this, Tonom dashes out of the office with Kikira, leaving Yako behind to handle things there. Not long after, Yako hears the doorbell go off, so she opens the door to see who's there. Unfortunately, it's one of Light's stalkers, but before he can do anything funny to Yako, Tonom arrives and chokeholds him. However, the dude begs for his life and reveals that he's Light's father, leaving everyone shocked. When Light returns, she confirms that the man is her father and that he runs a pharmaceutical company. Light's father apologizes for the trouble and explains that he only wanted to see how his daughter was doing. When Light questions why he came with their entire clan, he explains that they insisted on following him. Karma then cuts in and teases Light's father for being the clumsy type, but the dude side-eyes Karma, because he does not support Karma's relationship with Light. Later that evening, Tonom shares dinner with his employees because they've managed to resolve Light's case. While they are at it, Jirashi questions why Yako isn't drinking, so she says it'll be harder to get home if she's drunk. Jirashi then offers to walk her home if something like that happens, but about an hour later, Jirashi passes out from having too many drinks. After everyone is done eating, Tonom calls a taxi for Yako since it's already late and decides to take her home. On the way, Yako is flustered because she's thinking of a way to ask Tonom to join her for tea in her apartment. Just then, Tonom asks her out to another restaurant, which is usually dark with a pitch-black interior. He says he'd like to experience firsthand how Yako lives, so Yako smiles and promises to be his tour guide in the dark. Soon, the taxi gets to Yako's apartment, so Tonom drops her off and looks forward to seeing her tomorrow. As he is about to leave, Yako begs to share a cup of tea with him, but he refuses because the taxi is already waiting for him. However, he promises to stop by her place and make it up to her when he's free. A few days later, Tonom takes Yako out for a date at the pitch-black restaurant. After the lights go out, Yako starts teaching Tonom how to navigate their table and eat his food. However, when it's time to eat, Tonom excuses himself and heads to the shower because he's restless. As he freshens up and leaves, Yako sees him and asks if he'd like to leave the restaurant, and he admits it. On the way out, he apologizes for interrupting their date and promises to make it up to her for wasting his meal. However, Yako brushes it off as no big deal because she has already packed his food for him. All of a sudden, Tonom asks her to join him at his place for dinner, and it takes 3 seconds for her brain to process that. When they arrive, Tonom serves Yako a home-cooked meal, and she likes it. He then apologizes again for the restaurant thing and reveals that he's scared of the dark. A few years ago, he was at a camp with his mates, and there was a time his courage was tested. He and the other kids were told to hold a candle and walk up a mountain road, but along the way, his partner left him behind and he was all alone. As a result, he fell on his face and started bleeding, and even though he picked himself up and waited for someone to find him, no one did. Eventually, he gave up on waiting and managed to make it back to the cabins, but that was when he figured that no one knew he was gone. He was in tears as a result, and he realized this issue was because he was invisible. As Tonome narrates this in the present, Yako assures him that she could never ignore him because she knows how he sounds, smells, and moves, and she can also tell how he feels without looking at his face. She reveals that she would miss him if he left and wouldn't stop until she found him. Realizing what she just said, Tonome asks her to be his girlfriend, and the request throws the chick off. Deep down, she thinks Tonome might want to smash because that's what couples do, but Tonome says he's a gentleman and decides to hug her to make her feel comfortable. It's only been a week since Yako and Tonome started dating, and Yako wants to have more lovey-dovey moments with Tonome. She begins fantasizing about getting pinned and smashed, but calms down because she agreed to keep her urges and dating life separate from work. Just as she completes the day's work, Tonome takes her by surprise as he hugs her and asks her out on another date. The request melts Yako's heart and she agrees to the date, but not before tickling Tonome for ruining her lock-in phase. That evening, Tonome finishes up with work and asks to take Yako home. This makes Yako recall the last time he took her home, which was when he declined to have tea with her. Now, she wants Tonome to stay at her place for tea, so she joins him to the train station to get home fast. While on the train, she's flustered because Tonome will enter her room, but she calms down a bit when she recalls that her mom helped clean the place up a few days ago. All of a sudden, Tonome hugs her and asks if he can stay for tea, and Yako accepts immediately. A bit later, they arrive at her apartment, and Tonome makes himself feel comfortable. As he waits to be served, he notices Yako's silky garment on the floor and is tense because he's shy to tell Yako. He figures he'll stay quiet and pretend nothing is there, but that's when Yako walks by and steps on the silky garment. When asked what it is, Tonome claims it's a handkerchief, but one sniff of it makes Yako panic and hide it. After that, she serves Tonome a cup of tea and some cakes, and the dude likes it. After the meal, Tonome prepares to leave, but not before asking Yako to call him by his first name when they are in private. The thought of this makes Yako blush, and her floodgates start cooking when he calls her by her first name. Seeing her blush makes Tonome get the urge to kiss her, but he's hesitant because Yako is blind and he might ruin the timing of their kiss. With this in mind, Yako suggests they come up with a kissing signal, so Tonome scoffs and gives her a forehead kiss instead. The following week, Yako shows up at work and notices something different about Tonome's aura. When she asks what's up, Tonome reveals that he just got a new suit, and then proceeds to ask Jirashi if it looks good on him. Jirashi says she can't rate his looks because he's invisible, but the comment makes Yako realize that Tonome is a bit hurt by that. She wants to help, but can't because she doesn't know anything about clothes. However, Kikira compliments Tonome, saying that the suit slaps hard, and Jirashi feels the same way too. Feeling hyped, Tonome meets Yako and asks her to cop a feel of his suit, and when she does, she likes it. She even compliments him and asks if he likes fashion, but the dude says he only likes buying clothes, since it's the only way he can express himself. Watching from behind, Jirashi asks Tonome how he can make his clothes invisible, so Tonome explains that his body produces a chemical that makes him invisible, and he can extend the invisibility to his clothes. As he demonstrates this, Yako asks if he can make her invisible, so Tonome tries it by holding her hands, but it doesn't work. All the while, Yako is flustered because she just locked fingers with Tonome, and she wonders how fast his fingers are. When Jirashi mentions that Tonome's powers are pretty convenient, Tonome explains that full invisibility isn't legally allowed in public places and that he can only do it because he is a licensed investigator. Also, he kinda hates his powers because he can get run over by a car or bumped into by normal pedestrians walking on the street. After work, Yako stops by Light's tea shop with her mother to try out some tea. Yako's mother likes the place because it has a variety of tea flavors. Meanwhile, Light is wondering if Yako has told her mother about her relationship with Tonome. A few days ago, Light stopped by the office with her loser husband and offered everyone a tea treat to thank them for the help last week. As Tonome accepted the token, Karma started teasing Yako for dating her boss, so Light yelled at him to shut up and dragged him out of the office. Currently, Light figures Yako hasn't told her mother anything, and decides not to say anything about Tonome either. However, that's when Karma starts running his big mouth, but Light makes him shut up before Yako's mom finds out. Unfortunately, it's too late because the lady heard Karma snitch, and now she looks forward to meeting Tonome in person. Later at work, Jirashi and Kikira notice Tonome and Yako trying to avoid calling their first names. Both colleagues try their best to stay out of it, but Kikira gets fed up and tells the couple to stop pretending because it's already obvious that they're dating. After he says this, Jirashi attacks him because they originally agreed to mind their business. Meanwhile, Yako is shy that she's been had. A little later, a lawyer named Matter walks in and meets Tonome concerning a case he's been working on. He begs Tonome to get some information that will help with a recent court case, so Tonome agrees. As their meeting ends, Matter notices Tonome's suit and compliments him on it, and then leaves the building. Meanwhile, at night, Matter goes home to Kikira, and it turns out they are gay brothers. While they talk, Matter pushes for Kikira to make their relationship public at work, so the dude finally agrees. The following day, Kikira introduces Matter as his boyfriend, and Jirashi is shocked because she doesn't know why Matter finds Kikira attractive. Matter blushes and says he's been a thing with Kikira since high school, but before he can get into the bromance details, Kikira side-eyes him and threatens to be the top tonight. The following week, Yako is down with a bad cold, so Tonome calls and asks to visit. She agrees instantly, but after the call she realizes her mom is around and is shocked, but calms down when she notices that her mom isn't in the room. Not long after, Tonome arrives, and Yako invites him in. He then heads to the kitchen to make breakfast for her, but after he is done, he offers to feed her, which makes Yako blush. All the while, Yako's mother is in the laundry room, and she's fully aware that there's a dude with her daughter. When she decides to show herself, she finds Tonome in a weird position with Yako and starts explaining that she didn't mean to interrupt. Tonome is shocked to his bones because this isn't a good first impression, while Yako wishes the anime gods would take her life. The following week, Matter shows up at Tonome's office with an invisible client named Aya. Tonome is stunned to see her because their kind is rare, and Aya feels the same way. She introduces herself to Tonome and is excited that she's getting help from someone like her. Hearing them talk, Yako becomes jealous because Tonome is being too friendly with Aya, so Jirashi teases her for it. At Tonome's office, Aya reveals that she's being accused of theft at her job, as money was recently stolen. Since the camera captured nothing, her boss, who happens to be the vice president, claimed that an invisible person stole the money, so he accused Aya. Hearing this, Tonome asks about the president and learns that the dude is in the hospital, which means that the vice president is currently in charge of things. Aya says she didn't steal the money, but she's worried that she can't name an alibi because she's invisible. Despite that, Tonome assures her that he'll get to the bottom of the case, and she thanks him for it. The following day, Tonome and Matter meet with Gamake, the vice president, concerning Aya's case. Tonome asks for the security footage, and when he checks it, he notices that no one touched the safe after Gamake himself locked it. As Gamake begins blaming Aya for the missing cash, Tonome goes completely invisible to prove that his kind isn't intangible, and that the security camera would have captured the safe getting opened if Aya were really the thief. Seeing this, Gamake gets all sweaty and starts apologizing for accusing Aya. However, Matter pulls up footage showing that Gamake has been siphoning money ever since the president was admitted to the hospital. Seeing that he's been caught, Gamake starts sweating like a chicken, but he wets himself when the president shows up and is informed about his crimes. The following day, Aya thanks Tonome for helping her out. As she leaves, Tonome thanks his employees for helping out with the case. He then learns that Yako helped with everyone's schedule so they could focus on the case, so he personally thanks her for it. Feeling excited, he suggests a work trip, and Jirashi agrees, yelling that she would like to see the mountains. During the weekend, they all arrive at the mountains for the work trip and begin to set up their tents for the night. While they are at it, Tonome notices that Matter is quite fond of the mountains, but the dude claims he used to hate mountains and that it's thanks to Kikira that he now likes it there. A bit later, Tonome asks Yako to join him for a walk, and Yako agrees. On the way, Yako tells Tonome that she feels safe having him around, and Tonome feels the same way too. This makes Yako recall the scary experience Tonome had in the mountains when he was a youngster, but when she asks if he is cool with this trip, he claims he is over the trauma. After that, they sit at a bench, where Tonome brings up Yako's contribution to solving Aya's case. Yako thinks she didn't do much and says she only contributed because she saw how angry Tonome was with the whole thing. Hearing this, Tonome agrees that he was pissed about Aya's case, remarking that his kind usually gets treated with suspicion. He then pulls Yako closer and kisses her as a thank you for everything. Yako is flustered as this happens, but when Tonome stands to leave, she drags him so they can spend some time alone before heading back. That evening, Matter tells a story about why he used to hate the mountains. Several years ago, he and his mates were forced on a school trip in the mountains, and he hated it because he was overweight and couldn't keep up. When his mates left him behind, Kikira stuck around, and it made him feel relieved that someone was there for him. Over time, Matter got exhausted and decided to give up, but that was when Kikira showed up, gave him water, and offered to carry his bags. During lunch, Matter offered to eat with Kikira, but the dude refused because it felt weird. He argued that they weren't friends, but when Matter kept pushing, he was forced to agree. A few days passed, and the trip was over, so they had to go back to their academy. While on the bus, Matter woke up and found himself holding hands with a sleeping Kikira. He figured that Kikira would feel weird if he woke up, so he decided to pull his hand away. However, at the last second, he held Kikira's hand again, but was shocked to realize that Kikira was awake the whole time and thought the dude was too shy to talk. Since then, Matter started dating him. The following day, everyone prepares to fish at the lake, while Tonome waits for Yako to finish dressing up. At some point, Yako asks him for help with changing, and when he enters her tent, his sausage starts to cook. However, he sucks it up and helps Yako with her swimsuit, commenting that she looks cute in it. After she is done changing, she heads out with Tonome, and Jirashi remarks that she looks hot. After that, Yako joins Tonome at the lake, while Jirashi and the others try fishing with their bare hands. When it's Tonome's turn to fish, he fails to catch anything and ends up wetting his shirt. Seeing him, Jirashi realizes he is quite jacked, but as Yako hears this, she tells Tonome to take his shirt off. Tonome is skeptical about this because his shorts will be on display if he takes his shirt off, and it'll allow others to get an aerial view of what he's packing. Realizing it's embarrassing for him, Yako doesn't push any further, but she tells him she'd like to be the first person to uncover personal things about him. As Tonome hears this, he smiles and apologizes for being insensitive, but before he can kiss her again, Jirashi shows up and ruins everything. The following day, they all drive out of the mountains heading to the city, and Tonome is glad he got to be with Yako. He wishes he could get a solo trip with her but dials it down because it's too soon. The following week, Yako sits at work and giggles every 5 minutes, and her colleagues notice. They wonder what's up with her, but they don't know that she's creeped out about the kiss she shared with Tonome during their short trip. Yako keeps giggling because the kiss with Tonome was her first, and she hates that she hasn't had any bedroom experience. Later, after the day's work, Tonome decides to walk Yako home and suggests stopping by a bar to grab a drink. Yako agrees, but is a bit flustered because Tonome is relating to her as if their weekend kiss didn't happen. Tonome explains that it's not like that, and he only seems composed because he is trying his best not to feel shy. He then reminds her that he gets nervous around her, and it makes Yako's brain time out. When they arrive at the bar, the whole setting is new to Yako because she has never drunk outside her home. She asks about the purpose of bars, and Tonome explains that it's where people meet to spend time. Hearing this flusters Yako and makes her heart skip a beat, but she hates that everything Tonome is saying is making her floodgates twitch. As a result, she decides to sit beside Tonome to develop thick skin against his charm. She then opens up about her lack of experience in bedroom affairs and how she hates acting innocent around Tonome, but Tonome tells her not to worry about it. After they are done drinking, they take a ride home, but Yako is uncomfortable in the taxi because Tonome is quiet. Upon arriving at Tonome's building, she invites Tonome in for dinner, but Tonome refuses, making Yako feel bad. She thinks she did something wrong and sadly walks to her room to wet her pillows. However, Tonome notices her mood and hugs her to make her feel better, but the hug does more than that. 2 days later, it rains in the morning, and Tonome gets soaking wet while running to his office. When he arrives, Yako enters behind him and is wet from top to bottom, so Tonome acts like a gentleman and gives her his towel to make her feel warm. Meanwhile, he is shivering. A while later, he sets up the heater and gives Yako a blanket, but that's when Yako notices that he is wet and cold too. Feeling bad, she forces him to join her under the blanket. In this position, Yako notices that her skin is touching Tonome's, and it makes her start having funny ideas. When she mistakenly touches Tonome's cold fingers, she realizes they'll be of good use to her and casually mentions that it'll make her happy. Tonome gets the hint and preps her for a kiss, but that's when Jirashi barges into the office and ruins the mood. The following day, Yako's mom pesters her daughter about how she'd like to meet Tonome. Yako feels skeptical about the meetup, especially because of how she met Tonome last time, but she agrees anyway. That afternoon, Yako hosts her mother and Tonome at a restaurant, and the two get chatty. The woman apologizes to Tonome for ruining his thing with Yako, but Tonome brushes it off as no biggie and gives her a gift. Yako is paranoid because she doesn't know what to say, but she's shocked when she realizes that Tonome is getting familiar with her mother. After lunch, Tonome bids farewell to Yako's mother and walks away with Yako. Earlier, while Yako wasn't paying attention, her mother found out from Tonome that she was reliable at work, so she begged Tonome to look after her. A few days later, Tonome gives Yako a sweet-smelling flower and takes her to a love park. Yako likes the place because it smells amazing, and also because the place has sweet treats. As she tastes them, she lights up because they're delicious, while Tonome looks at her and finds her cute. The following day, Yako arrives at the office and is shocked when Karma suddenly charges at her to greet her. As a result, Yako right-hooks Karma to the floor, while Tonome shows up and scolds him for acting stupid. He then asks what he wants, so Karma reveals that his wife, Light, has gone out on a trip. He feels skeptical about it because Light packed most of her belongings, though he doesn't read much meaning into it. All of a sudden, Light calls and informs him that she's at her father's place, which leaves Karma shocked because he senses a divorce. While he cries his eyes out, Tonome advises him to go home and call his wife, but he refuses since he thinks that Tonome is trying to get rid of him. He yells that he'll do things to himself if left alone, so Yako advises Tonome to accommodate him at least until his brain resets. Hearing this, Karma pushes further and asks to spend the night with Tonome, promising to help out with house chores. The following morning, Tonome wakes up to Karma giving him rainbow vibes, so he politely avoids taking any offers from him. While he eats breakfast, he asks Karma if he's called his wife yet, but Karma says he hasn't because he is too scared of what she might say. Later, Karma heads to work with Tonome, and Yako notices Tonome's dull mood. When she asks what's up, Karma's cheeks turn red, and he reveals that he attended to Tonome's dearest needs all night. While everyone tries to understand what this means, Tonome tells Karma to shut up so that this anime channel will survive tomorrow, but the dude keeps running his mouth. A bit later, he offers to help Tonome with today's detective work, so they head out together to keep close tabs on a suspect. Tonome is supposed to follow the said dude, but the issue is that the guy can fly, and Tonome will lose him. As Karma hears about this, he uses his elven powers to curse the suspect's wings, which restrict him from flying. Tonome is shocked when he sees this, so Karma explains that he can curse people when his heart is in a dark place. Tonome understands this because Karma is sad about his situation with his wife, but he didn't expect it to be this bad. Feeling bad for him, Tonome offers to let Karma spend another night at his place, under the condition that Karma calls his wife. Later, at the office, Karma finally calls his wife, but after the call, he runs home without saying a word to Tonome. In his absence, Yako curiously asks if he doesn't like Karma, so he explains that his personality doesn't match Karma's. He also admits that he is jealous of how Karma can easily express his emotions, so Yako smiles and forces him to lie on her. While Yako touches his face, he becomes a bit uncomfortable and decides to return the favor, and the rest is history. The following week, Tonome dresses up in an academy uniform because he is investigating a place filled with students. Jirashi and Matter find him cute, but when Kikira appears dressed in a security outfit, Matter loses it and starts taking pictures of him because he is cute. Jirashi compliments his looks, saying he'll fit as an undercover agent. However, when it's time for Jirashi to change, she refuses because she's shy. That afternoon, she's dressed in a revealing maid outfit at a cafe because her target is working there. One of the customers finds Jirashi cute and tries to start a conversation with her, but her poker face scares him off. After that, Jirashi notices how all the other maids are comfy in their outfits and feels jealous because she's insecure about her spotted patterns and isn't comfy with showing too much skin. Later on, Jirashi returns to the office and complains to Yako that she isn't cut out for the job because the maid outfit makes her uncomfortable. When Yako realizes she's insecure about her looks, she pats her on the head, encouraging her that she's cute. So Jirashi begs her to join her to shop for new outfits. At the mall, Jirashi struggles to pick something that suits her because of her fur pattern. At a restaurant, Jirashi asks Yako if she's envied other people who can see, so she replies that she's never had the chance to see before and doesn't feel the need to be jealous of others. Yako then asks Jirashi if she's envious of others, and she replies that she envies Yako because all clothes look good on her. Deep down, Jirashi has a mental picture of what cute is like to her, and she doesn't feel like she meets the cut. She even mentions that she'd dye her fur so other outfits would look good on her, but is hesitant because her patterns are part of her family's heritage. Hearing this, Yako tells Jirashi she doesn't need anyone's advice to make a move like that, and she only needs to find what she's comfortable with before acting on it. This makes sense to Jirashi, so the following day, she heads to the mall to get new clothes. Here she tries on a spotted outfit, but gets discouraged because it doesn't fit. Coincidentally, one of the staff, who happens to be a spotted person, advises her to go for a pattern that blends well with her skin, and it works for her. All the while, Karma is at the office, yelling to Tonome that his wife has left him and gone back to her parents again. When Tonome asks what's going on, Karma reveals that Light's dad is in the hospital and she has to look after him. Karma then begs Tonome to let him spend the night because he'll end up in a negative mood if left alone and he'll be dishing out curses left and right. He begs to stay until Light returns, but when Tonome asks how long that will be, Karma says 5 months. Hearing this, Jirashi reasons there's something going on that Karma doesn't know about, though she stays quiet about it. At night, Yako and Jirashi hop on a video call with Light to find out what's going on. When asked how her father is doing, Light comes clean and says he's not in the hospital and she only left Karma because she's pregnant. Jirashi smirks, saying she suspected something like that was going on, but she asks Light why she isn't telling Karma anything yet. Light says it's because of Karma's dark elf curse powers, which often counter her powers of blessing. She also adds that her elven race has a low pregnancy rate, so whenever one of them gets pregnant, her whole clan makes a big deal about it. Normally, she'll have to spend time in the sacred elf forest in the White Elf village, where multiple rituals will be performed to ensure a safe delivery. Hearing this, Yako starts wishing she was a pregnant elf so she would get princess treatment like Light, which makes Light laugh. After that, Light says Karma will blame himself if anything happens to her or the baby, which is why she's keeping the pregnancy from him. The following evening, while Yako is walking home with Tonome, they coincidentally suggest having the same meal to survive the cold weather. Yako suggests they use her place, so Tonome agrees and helps out in the kitchen. While they're at it, Tonome is scared that Yako might cut herself because he feels she doesn't know how to use a knife, but she proves she's a pro. After that, Tonome remarks on how close they've gotten over the past few weeks, and he likes that he's been able to learn a lot about Yako. Yako feels the same way and remarks that she's noticed a distinct smell that comes with him, so Tonome says it's from his cologne. He then asks if she would like to smell him again, so Tonome suggests he take his clothes off so she can get the real thing. Hearing this shocks Yako to her bones because she isn't ready for that, so she tells Tonome to calm down. A bit later, they sit together to enjoy dinner, and they both like the meal. All the while, Light is thinking about her predicament and decides to text Karma for an audio call. Over the phone, Karma is excited to speak to Light and mentions that he can't wait to see her in 5 months' time. Hearing this, Light is shocked that he isn't pissed, so she reveals that she's pregnant. She says she left because she has more resources at her dad's and that she's also keeping other secrets from him. Karma asks why she kept her pregnancy a secret, so she reveals that he wanted to run away when it was time for them to get married because of his curses, and she felt he was going to do the same thing if she broke the news of her pregnancy. Now, she feels that he will run since he knows the truth about her, but Karma shockingly tells her that he knew she was pregnant. Apparently, he called her dad, who she claimed was sick, and wanted to check on him, but the dude yelled at him and told him to stay away from his grand offspring, and that was what gave it away. Light, although in tears, is a bit relieved to hear this because it means Karma isn't going to run, but she refuses to tell him the other secret even when he asks. The following day, Jirashi heads to the mall to get some clothes, but this time she meets a different staff member. Since the staff isn't spotted, she subconsciously recommends outfits that don't meet Jirashi's style, so Jirashi asks to see the other dude who attended to her. A bit later, the guy shows up and Jirashi summons the courage to ask for his help. He agrees and pulls up a cute office outfit, which fits perfectly when Jirashi tries it on. He then compliments Jirashi's shape, calling her cute, but Jirashi doesn't believe this because if she was cute, she wouldn't need his help. Feeling bad for her, the dude hands her his business card, telling Jirashi to reach out to him for help because he's looking to open a store for spotted people who have issues with picking clothes to buy. The following week, Tonom stops at a flower store with Yako to get some flowers for the office. Here, the store owners, who are a married couple, attend to Tonom, and the dude is surprised that the husband is an Oni. Yako finds this romantic because the wife is human, which mirrors her interspecies relationship with Tonom. After Tonom is done at the store, he heads back to the office and notices Yako sniffing the flowers a little too much. When Tonom asks her if she's always liked roses, she says she started liking them ever since he got her one, leaving him speechless. The following day, Yako is out walking in the streets but trips and falls over almond fruits. While she tries to figure out what just happened, an Oni named Yu shows up and apologizes for making her fall because he kicked the almond tree. Yako, realizing the dude is young, doesn't believe he has the strength to kick a tree like that until Yu reveals he's an Oni-human mix. He explains that although he is strong, he has issues controlling his strength, and he was taking out his frustration on the tree because he mistakenly injured his friend. After hearing this, Yako sympathizes with him and offers to help out with his friend's situation. After she's done talking to him, he heads off and meets his friends, offering a new way to play with them without getting them hurt. The following day, Tonom sits in the office trying to figure out a case on a humanoid chicken who is allegedly selling illegals on the black market. Karma is interested in the case because he helped track the dude down, but he pauses the case when Yu shows up to see Yako. Turns out, Yu is interviewing people of different professions for his school project, and Tonom is open to sharing a thing or two about his job. However, Yu sees the humanoid chicken's picture on Tonom's desk and says he recognizes him from a certain street. Immediately, Tonom asks for the dude's last location and then heads out to track him down. As he leaves the office, Yu figures he is onto a job, so he comes up with an excuse to leave the office as well. Outside, he trails Tonom because he is eager to know what a detective's work is about, but he somehow loses Tonom's trail. As he runs off looking for Tonom, Tonom appears behind a tree, wondering why the dude is following him. After that, he uses another route to find the chicken guy, and he sees the dude in an active smuggling operation. While it's going down, one of the chicken's goons finds Yu taking pictures of them, so he's questioned about whether he's a spy. Yu explains that he's just messing around, but struggles to avoid getting tied up. When he recalls that he doesn't have control over his strength, he powers down to avoid hurting any of them and gets restrained in a room. While tied up, he wonders what might happen to him and is scared, thinking he might be sold because of his strength. As he cries his eyes out, Tonom appears in the room and tells him that everything will be fine because he's called for backup. This makes Yu feel better, but he gets excited, noticing that Tonom is using his invisibility to its full advantage to solve cases, and now he wants to be a detective like Tonom when he grows up. Shortly after, Tonom unties Yu, but that's when the goons outside cut off the power, which scares Tonom because he's scared of the dark. His experience with being lost in the dark woods still haunts him, but he tries to keep it together because Yu is also scared. When Tonom turns on a flashlight, Yu feels better and proceeds to ask Tonom why he decided to become a detective. Tonom explains that he was once lost in the woods and no one could find him, so he decided to become a detective so he could find people who want to be found. Right then, a call comes in from Yako, who asks if he's alright. After Tonom briefs her, she panics but is happy that Yu is okay. She then agrees to keep Tonom company over the phone but unalives him with a boring story about Jim Brothers. All the while, Karma arrives around Tonom's location and uses his dark elven powers to curse some dude trying to move product. As the guy falls weak to the ground, other goons surround him to figure out what's going on, so Jirashi uses the opportunity to plant trackers in their van. With that done, she prepares to give the chicken dude and his goons a whooping. Kikira notices her excitement and tells her to go easy on the criminals, but she refuses and attacks an unlucky guy. The impact of her attack causes the dude to pass out on the spot, but as others see that she's a chick, they underestimate her. The first dude attacks her, thinking she's a weakling, only to be folded like toilet paper and smashed into the ground. Next, the chicken dude tries to play dirty by attacking her with a weapon, but he eats Jirashi's punch as lunch and gets bodied into a wall. Seeing this, the last guy realizes he's cooked if he goes against Jirashi, so he starts begging to be spared. Just as Jirashi is about to consider it, the dude pulls out 2 submachine guns and starts raining bullets on Jirashi. Jirashi dodges all of them, closes the distance between them, and lands a punch that leaves a swelling. As she ties all the goons up, the chicken dude recovers and tries to chicken out into the sky, but Jirashi chases him, catches him mid-flight, and the rest is history. In the meantime, Karma finds Tonom and offers to help them out, but he doesn't notice when a dude tries to attack him from behind. Before he can get hit, Tonom blocks the bad guy's attack and then counters with a nasty hit that knocks him out cold. With that, Karma and you start glazing his fighting skills, but Tonom brushes it off as no biggie. Later that day, Tonom dreams about his scary experience in a dark forest, but wakes up and finds himself lying on Yako's lap. When he recalls that Yako insisted he rest on her, he asks how long he's been out and realizes he is pretty tired from work. All of a sudden, he kisses Yako and tells her that he wants her by his side forever. This makes Yako turn red, but before she can open up to Tonom, the florist couple enters the office with Yu and ruins everything. Apparently, the couple wants to thank Tonom for saving their youngster, Yu, but since they know what was about to happen, the wife covers Yu's eyes. After Yu thanks Tonom for the help, he gets dragged away by his parents, and it makes Tonom feel shy because he was caught red-handed with Yako. That evening, Tonom stops by a restaurant with Yako to have drinks and opens up about their relationship so far. He's always felt like Yako accepted him because he's her boss, but now he's noticed that Yako likes him for real. With that settled, he tells Yako he intends to date and marry her, but it shocks her to her bones. Although she's in on that, she's more shocked when Tonom mentions cohabiting, but is a bit relaxed when Tonom says they aren't moving in yet. About a week later, Yako arrives at work as usual and mistakes a sleeping Tonom for a regular chair. Although she's in panic mode, she calms down easily because Tonom is asleep, and it means he can't tell what just happened. Seconds later, Tonom shows signs of movement, so Yako sits beside him and starts fantasizing about how she wants to kiss him like she did last week. She thinks about it for a while and decides to do it while Tonom is still asleep. Just as she's about to lock lips with Tonom, the dude wakes up and asks what she's doing, and she becomes mute. Deep down, she wonders if he's been awake the whole time. When she summons the courage to ask, Tonom becomes mute too. The following day, Yako is a bit uneasy because Tonom hasn't said anything about living together for a week now. Tonom notices her mood and asks what's up, so she begs him to walk her home after he's done working. Tonom agrees but insists she'll have to wait a while. Since he knows he'll be done with work late, he suggests they spend the night at his place, and Yako starts seeing stars. After the long wait, Tonom takes her to a convenience store to get things she'll use to pass the night. He even asks Yako for the size of her silky garments, but the question fries her brain. This whole shopping thing makes Yako realize that Tonom is mature because he didn't flinch when he asked for her cake cover size. However, she begins wondering if he's done something like this before. Later, they both arrive at Tonom's apartment, but Yako is nervous because it's her first time sleeping at a dude's house. Her reaction makes Tonom assume that he's rushing things, so he suggests they postpone tonight's sleepover to some other time. Yako is against this and insists on spending the night with him, so she begs him not to let her go home. With that, Tonom invites her in and gives her a tour of the place. When he arrives at his bedroom, he tells Yako that she'll be sleeping there while he'll take the couch in the sitting room. Hearing this, Yako is shocked because she'll be sniffing Tonom's scent from the sheets all night, and she turns red. A bit later, she's in the bathroom trying to freshen up, and the fact that she's hot and unplotted in a dude's house is making her nervous. When she's done, she joins Tonom in the sitting room, and the dude notices her hair is a little wet. He then leaves to get the hair dryer, but this bothers Yako because Tonom doesn't use the dryer at all, meaning that someone else might have stayed over at his place. She begins thinking far and assumes that Tonom might have had a girlfriend in the past, which explains why he's mature around her. Not long after, Tonom arrives with the dryer and helps her out, but doing this worsens her thoughts as she thinks that Tonom has done this for another girl. She even thinks that Tonom has asked a girl to marry him before but shakes off the thought because it's depressing. Tonom notices her reaction and asks what's up, so she requests a kiss. Unfortunately, Tonom politely declines the kiss, insisting that she'll be hospitalized for 9 months if they proceed. It takes 5 minutes for Yako's pea-sized brain to process this, but when she does, she's red in bed, shivering like an exposed chicken in winter. The following day, when Kikira arrives at the office, Yako asks about his experience of living with Matter in the same house, and the dude becomes uncomfortable. The question makes him realize that Yako is planning on moving in with Tonom, so he tells her that his experience with Matter won't be of any help to her. He also thinks that something is bothering Yako, and the girl confirms this. Turns out she is worried that, with the way things are going with Tonom, she might become totally dependent on him. When she complains that Tonom is too accommodating, Kikira tells her to open up to Tonom instead because that's the only way she'll feel better. Later that afternoon, Tonom arrives at the office and shares a lunch treat with Yako. While Yako digs in, she realizes her share is a lot smaller than Tonom's, so she calls him a cheat and an SD. The following day, when Tonom arrives at the office, he begs Kikira to tell him what an SD means, but the dude refuses. That evening, Yako apologizes to Tonom for calling him names earlier, but Tonom brushes it off as no biggie because he now knows what the term SD means. Before now, he managed to convince Kikira to talk and learn that the term was slang for a perfect dude who's rich, good in the bank, the kitchen, and in the bedroom. Presently, Tonom asks Yako if he's being too accommodating to her, but a shy Yako tells him not to worry about it. Tonom then replies that he isn't an SD and he's only being sweet to her because he's trying to earn her trust. This makes Yako question if he thinks she doesn't trust him, but he says it's not like that. He stutters while trying to explain himself, and Yako figures it's hard for him to open up. In Tonom's defense, he explains that his kind has always worked as spies because of their invisibility, and many of them have no record of their past and don't know their roots. Although their powers were useful in investigations, it was difficult for their kind to establish trust with others. Tonom also reveals that he was tutored on how to act from a young age, so it would be easy for him to blend into normal society without issues. Yako wonders why it had to be like this and points out that Tonom's invisibility is the only thing that makes him different from normal humans. Hearing this, Tonom realizes that Yako perceives him as a normal human being, so he blushes a bit. When Yako asks if life as an invisible person is hard, he narrates a tale about an invisible model who performed in a fashion show and expressed himself with his outfit. Back then, Tonom watched the dude and looked up to him because invisible models were rare, and also because the guy could use clothes to express himself. Currently, Tonom says it's thanks to the model that his fashion sense changed, and Yako finds it interesting that he got inspired by an invisible model. After that, Tonom promises to be a little less accommodating to Yako to make her feel better, and Yako is cool with it. However, at night, she lies in bed, wishing that Tonom would come and fulfill all her bedroom fantasies, but she ends up sad because it isn't happening yet. All the while, Tonom is in another room, thinking about his last conversation with Yako. Turns out, he didn't tell Yako the truth about why his kind struggles to earn other people's trust, and he's struggling with finding the right time to tell her. That brings us to the end of today's video. If you watched up to this point, let's confuse the fake anime watchers by commenting, "Sweet plot." Don't forget to like and subscribe, and let me know if you want the next episode.